Hello everyone, this is Showtime 112. It's April 27th, 1972, and the Vietnam War had recently escalated again. The main trigger for the situation being the communist invasion of the South, to which Americans responded with air power, and this would eventually develop into Operation Linebacker, a major air campaign against North Vietnam. The main protagonists on both sides were the F-4 Phantom and MiG-21. The F-4 Phantom on the American side being even more dominant among the units of US Air Force and Navy, with some new variants, new models being introduced, such as E version for the Air Force and J version for the Navy. Main difference compared to the older types being introduction of new pulse Doppler radars capable of detecting low-level targets. As for the communist side, the MiG-21 community had recently increased, with the 2nd Regiment being formed, while the original Regiment 921 was now operating a mixture of older PFM MiG-21s and more advanced MFs. There were some new tactics introduced as well, especially with the US Navy, and they appear to have worked rather well, because of the first 8 air-to-air kills of 1972, all of them were scored by American pilots. However, this streak could not go on indefinitely. So we were talking about new Phantom variants. However, some squadrons were still flying the older types. This goes for both squadrons of the USS Coral Sea, the F-51 and the F-111. They were equipped with the F-4B Phantom. Now we will focus on a mission flown by a pair of Phantoms from the Coral Sea on the April 27th. Their primary target was in the vicinity of Hanoi. However, it could not be located because of very low overcast. They attempted to locate their secondary target, a bridge south of Hanoi. However, this too was covered by clouds, and they couldn't find it. The only thing they could find was a truck, which they attacked with their cluster bombs and destroyed. They then set up a combat air patrol station in the vicinity of the secondary target, and they were soon contacted by the Red Crown. Red Crown was the code name for US Navy warships operating in the Gulf of Tonkin and providing radar cover for American air crews. In this case, it was the nuclear cruiser Long Beach. So the Red Crown warned Phantoms of a MiG approaching from the north. When they first called it was 80 miles away. That MiG was in fact a pair of MiG-21s. Took off from Noi Bai airfield, and the leader was Lieutenant Huang Quoc Dung, who at that point had no kills to his credit. MiGs were flying low towards the pair of Phantoms, and it seems that they were able to detect the Phantoms when they were about 6 miles away. As for the Phantom flight, the leader was an experienced commander. Pilot of the 2nd Phantom was Lieutenant Al Molinaire, and the backseat of the 2nd Phantom was an extremely experienced Lieutenant Commander James Souder. He was on his 3rd combat tour of Vietnam, and this was his mission number 335. In fact, description of this event come mostly from recollections of Lieutenant Commander Souder. He seems to remember that he had a very bad feeling about the situation because the whole thing really smelled like a trap. And in fact, yes, the situation was very favorable for the MiGs. There was a low overcast. The MiGs were flying under it. Phantoms, on the other hand, were flying above the overcast. And the Phantom leader decided to intercept the MiGs even though his flight was getting low on fuel. The Red Crown was calling the distance to the MiGs all the time. However, this was not precise enough for the Phantoms, because in order to intercept the MiGs, they had to locate them either by their radars or visually, both of which was practically impossible because they were older types, F-4Bs, whose radar could not detect low-level targets, and the overcast was preventing them from locating the MiGs visually. And now a small disclaimer, the MiG-21 we're flying is in fact the BIS variant. In reality it was the PFM. The F-4s here were B models originally. In this case they are F-4E. The skin belongs to the VF-51 sister squadron, VF-111. And the red crown is not USS Long Beach, it's in fact a Ticonderoga class cruiser. The reasons for all this being that these were the closest options available. So if you really need to comment on this, go ahead, but this will really change nothing.
Vector 360 at 80. At 60. 360 at 20. 360 at 4. 'Might have threats behind you. Check 220 at 4.
Lieutenant Zung was able to slip behind the Phantoms, and then using Immelman maneuver he positioned his MiG-21 behind Phantom number 2, launched his missiles, one of which hit. Phantom was initially controllable to a point, and the pilot, Lieutenant Molinaire, in fact attempted to reach the shore so that they could eject over water. However, all the systems soon failed, and both crew members were forced to eject over land, where they were soon captured and spent the rest of the war as POWs. Lieutenant Commander Souder in fact spent the same number of days as a POW as the number of missions he had flown in Vietnam. Interesting fact is that Commander Souder met the Vietnamese pilot Lieutenant Zung, who had shot him down in 2005 in Vietnam. Meeting appeared to have been rather cordial and friendly. In fact, it was not only such case, because some other American pilots visited Vietnam and their former enemies, after which they returned to visit the United States, and all the feelings that they might have had for each other during the war seem to have been replaced by healthy professional respect for each other. And we are back at Hanoi Bai Airfield. I hope you liked the video. If you did, be sure to press the like button. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook. If you're able to, you can support the channel on Patreon, which would be extremely helpful. Feel free to comment, share, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and keep watching Showtime 112.